Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston born and raised, H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, folks of all stripes, and distinguished guests, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, your Houston sports podcast for diehard Houston sports fans. From a diehard Houston sports fan, I'm Paul Salazar Jr., your favorite diehard Astros fan podcaster, and feel free to add as many additional qualifiers to that statement to make it true. I'm an actor, improviser, writer, creative multi-hyphenate, and most importantly, I'm a proud Houston native, and I have the receipts to prove it. That's right, folks. I love bragging about it, but people just don't know this. I am the jester that they named T.C. Jester after. You know, I've spent the last decade as a comedy writer in Los Angeles, and now, well, I'm podcasting. That's what happens when you hit 10 years out here. You start absent-mindedly calling it The 10 instead of I-10, and you start podcasting. On today's episode, we are previewing baseball. That's right, it is spring training, the crack of the bat. Folks, pitchers and catchers are reporting it is the Super Bowl is officially over. Baseball season is here, so we're going to talk some Astros baseball. We're going to project the lineup. We're going to project the starting rotation, and we'll even talk about the bullpen and the bench. Buckle in, Astros fans. At this point, I'd like to welcome newcomers. Space Cadet Sports started as a passion project where we try not to be doom and gloom, casual Astros and Houston fans. Most sports podcasts are doom and gloom clickbait, or just emotional overreactions and hot takes. So here we try not to be just another dude yelling his opinion as if they're facts. I try my hardest to remember that we've all elected to be Houston sports fans, and we should try to enjoy this life. Why torture ourselves by letting these sports bros rile up our emotions? We try to be reasonable. Well, we remember, this is a lot of trying that I'm describing here to an extent because, well, I'm still human. And also, maybe I used to write roast jokes for money, so maybe there's a little bit of clown, that blood that always runs through me. You know, I'm just basically admitting what other podcasters are too cowardly to admit. I'm a clown, okay? So be warned. At this point, I'd like to welcome returning listeners and welcome new listeners to what my brothers call the Paul Broad Pod Ball Blog. Hey, brothers. They're both Milford men. Shout out to my brothers. Shout out to Arrested Development fans. And shout out to the subscribers on the Substack. If you've never been there before, check out spacecadetsports.substack.com for the full blog experience, or the full blog experience, depending on your interpretations of my mumbles here. As always, we're recording this transmission here in sunny Los Angeles, where I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, The Roz, to my Frasier. Carla the dog is here with me. Longtime listeners of the podcast know that she may get on mic from time to time. She's got the hot takes on the pod. So let's get to it. G'day, mates! Welcome all listeners, and let's talk some Houston Astros baseball. That's right, folks. The Super Bowl is officially over, which means it is baseball season. There's been a lot going on in the baseball world this winter. I would say maybe not too much going on with the Astros this winter, but let's get to it. I talked about it last week on the podcast. La Grasa. Framber Valdez finally found a home in Detroit, and he is actually gonna have a reunion. That's the word I'm looking for, folks. I apologize. The coffee is just clicking in right now, folks. You have to bear with me as I find the words I am trying to say. Justin Verlander is also headed to Detroit on a 1-year deal. I believe it's 1 year, $13 million. I don't have that in front of me, so I apologize. Look, I told you I'm a clown. I didn't say I was a journalist. I'm a fan. Remember, please forgive me. I didn't write down how much that contract was for, but I believe it's in the teens. So apologies for not writing that down. But Justin Verlander is headed back to Detroit. He is reuniting with AJ Hinch. He's reuniting with Framber Valdez. That's with Tarek Skubal in that rotation. That's going to be a fun rotation to watch, if nothing else, this season at least for Astros fans. So obviously, no Justin Verlander to the Houston Astros, shocking the world. Houston fans know that Justin Verlander, it would have been lovely to have him on this team this season. Maybe filling out a 6-man rotation there, but for where the Astros are looking to compete for the postseason, it just didn't seem like Justin Verlander was exactly the right fit. But my argument here obviously is going to be that the Detroit Tigers are looking to hunt for the postseason, and they're signing Justin Verlander. So, he's factoring in to be a back end of the rotation guy anywhere, or most places, I should say, for at least on contending teams. That's probably where Justin Verlander would factor in. But we'll see. I mean, I honestly, while it is sad that he won't have a reunion with the Astros, I wasn't banking on it for the Astros being a winning club next season. We'll have to see how Justin Verlander does. We miss Mr. Upton, and we wish him well. Another big news across the league that does affect your Houston Astros, the Boston Red Sox traded for a third baseman. This is important because the Red Sox desperately needed a third baseman, and the Astros were looking to unload a third baseman in Issac Paredes, which sucks, honestly. I definitely loved what Issac brought to the team last season. I've been basically on the podcast saying that if that happens, we all agree that for the way the lineup needs to perform, having a patient hitter like Issac Paredes would have been preferable to Christian Walker. And I'm not trying to slander Christian Walker. I'm not trying to drag his name through the mud. We love Christian Walker on the podcast. We stand him here, but we have way too many infielders. And if I'm just having to pick which infielder doesn't make the cut for the Houston Astros and who we prefer to trade away, of course that would be Christian Walker. However, Christian Walker's defense is spectacular, so I'm glad to have him still on the team. But with his lackluster offensive season last year, there were not too many buyers in the Christian Walker market. Or, I think most likely, just teams were not giving the Astros an offer that we feel is the right value for, or the right price for Christian Walker. So because of not a lot of love for him on the market, Issac Paredes was an easier person to trade, so he was on the trade block. However, I think there were a lot of lowball offers for Issac Paredes too. Or there's Carla agreeing. There were too many lowball offers for Issac Paredes. The Astros were not able to trade him, and I'm glad. I don't think the Astros needed to move off of Issac Paredes in a way that if they didn't do it, the season was over. I think that he has much more value as a player, and I was saying the last month or so on the podcast, I project that Issac Paredes goes into the spring training, goes into the season with the Houston Astros, and potentially, if there's a logjam, he will be traded at the trade deadline or in the season. So this is not a surprise for me. Maybe to some people, they were hoping for that trade. I'm not surprised. I think this is how it's going to be. Plus, I like Issac Paredes on the team. We need him in the lineup. At least that is my humble opinion. But talking about the Astros going into spring training, Fangraphs has the Astros ranked 15th in spring training power rankings. My lord. Dios mío, the disrespect, folks. 15th in spring training power rankings. And look, this is generally how the Astros are ranked. Their prospects, are never ranked high. They're never really ranked high in power rankings at the beginning of the season. It takes to the summer before I feel like the Astros are generally ranked appropriately in power rankings. People just don't like the Astros. Plus, just after last season, there's a good reason to try to bury them a little bit. But the national media has been trying to bury the Astros since 2019. They've been just salivating, waiting for the Astros to fall off. So I always feel like they push the Astros towards the edge of falling off every season at the beginning of the season. Anyway, that's why I started the podcast, because of my anger at the power rankings. Not really, but it's always frustrating. So let's look at this squad. Let's look at some projections for how this squad is going to line up. And we're going to start here with the rotation, and then we'll get to the bullpen and long relievers, and then we'll get to positional players after that. But folks, I'm going to take a quick break. It's a little bit of an early break, but I feel like it's better to do it now before starting to talk about pitching and then taking the break in the middle. All right, folks, so we'll take a quick break. I'll figure out the words I'm trying to say. We'll be right back.
H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
And we're back. Welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Salazar Jr., and we are into baseball season, y'all. So let's get to the rotation. Let's project this rotation going into spring training. Obviously, coming out of spring training, these projections might change a little bit because we'll see how these players are actually, what form they're in. But going into it, I have a feeling that this is generally it. So let's number one, no question in anybody's mind, is Hunter Brown. Diesel is the ace of this staff. Hunter Brown will be opening day starter. He'll be pushing for 200 innings. He's going to be pushing for a career year with the Houston Astros and putting this team on his back and carrying them to the postseason. That's just it, plain and simple. The second starter, in my opinion, would be Christian Javier, El Reptil. I place him there because of his longevity with the team, with his success with this team. And last season definitely wasn't his best season, but I do think he has the stuff to bounce back. I think that he'll have a strong year, and I think health will have to factor into that, of course, but I feel pretty strongly about Christian Javier having a great year with your Houston Astros. I'm calling it. I mean, health, like everything else, health has to remain a factor, but I think he's going to have a great year with the Astros, and we'll feel like we'll be talking about him being a second ace. I feel like in a couple months. Maybe I'm being optimistic. Definitely let me know what you think. But he's number 2 starter for me. Number 3 is going to be Tatsuya Imai. So the Japanese pitcher, I think you slot him in there to number 3. The only reason that he may not be like the third starter in any kind of way is if there's some kind of routine that he prefers to stay in that they don't have him ready for, or just works better for Imai's health. Honestly, when it comes down to it, I don't know a lot about the Japanese league. I do know that they prefer that extra day of rest. They do 6-man rotations all the time. So I think the Astros are figuring out how to roll out the red carpet for the Japanese pitcher Tatsuya. And I think they'll figure it out. I think they obviously really want to work with him. They want to showcase to other Japanese pitchers and other Japanese players that the Houston Astros are open for business. This is a destination stop for players wanting to break into Major League Baseball from the Japanese and the Korean League. So I think that this is the only reason that he will be placed in a spot over the other will just be because of his 6-man rotation needing that extra day of rest. And that being said, I do think the Astros go into the season with a six-man rotation. That isn't me breaking any news. Pretty much everybody has been talking about it all winter. They have a bit of a heavy schedule to start off, so there probably will be a six-man rotation to start the season just for the health of the staff, getting everybody stretched out, and because we have a Japanese pitcher in Tetsuya Imai. So we're going with the six-man rotation now. So that's obviously we're halfway through now that we're number 3. So number 4, I got Spencer Arrighetti in there. I think you could go Burrows. Of course, Burrows is next for me, the pitcher that we traded for in the offseason from the Pirates. I have Arrighetti above Burrows just because of his tenure with the team, just because he's had some success with the team. I think both of these pitchers are kind of in the same spot in their career. They're trying to prove their success. They've had some success. They have some people singing their praises in the league, but they need to find some consistency. They need to have a consistent season. Just for the simple nature of his having more of a tenure with the team, having more relationships there, I'm putting Spencer Arrighetti above Burrows. And yeah, I think Burrows, it's not that I don't believe in his talent or I don't think that he is going to do well on the team by slotting him 5th there. I think he can work his way up the rotation. We can be really excited about Burrows this upcoming season. A lot of the pitching coaches and the front office of the Astros have spoken very highly of him in all the interviews I've heard from podcasts and radio and stuff. So I do think Burrows, this team doesn't seem to talk too highly of people and it just be smoke, I guess is what I'm saying. They were talking about Wesneski last season. I think they're really good at finding pitchers in this league that just need some adjustments. So I'm excited to see what Burrows brings to the mound for the Houston Astros. And in the 6th spot for the rotation, folks, call me a homer if you want, but we're going with Mr. Bury Me in the H, Lance McCullers Jr. And this is because he's a vet. I think he is going to be given that opportunity from the team to show that he has it. And look, I'm nervous. We are big fans of Lance McCullers on the podcast. We are rooting for him to find success in the league again. But after last season, I am nervous. And I'm nervous because I want him to do well. I think this season will be very telling for Lance McCullers Jr. his future with the team and his future in the league even. So we're rooting for him. We're rooting for him to find some success, to figure out kind of what little tweaks he needs to make to kind of get that fastball popping again, to have him set up that slider by actually throwing some non-off-speed pitches. And that really is what we'll be looking at least here at the podcast from my perspective. We'll be seeing if he can locate and utilize that fastball to set up his slider. And after, what he was attempting last season, it did not look good. So we're hoping that he has full health this season and he'll be able to bounce back. It would be such a great story to have Lance McCullers Jr. come into this rotation and help solidify it. It would be a bummer of a story for Lance McCullers Jr. to struggle in the rotation and lose a spot in the 6-man rotation. But honestly, I think those are obviously two very different options. One of them I really would hate to see, but those are kind of the options for McCullers this season. And when it comes to long relievers, folks, the Astros have a lot of pitching depth. And that's something that GM Dana Brown focused on this offseason. I feel like the last couple of seasons, Dana Brown has had to use a lot of pitchers. People have been getting injured. Last season, obviously, the pitching did okay for most of the season. They were able to hold it together, have a great pitching season, I would say, and the offense was really what let us down. But you need pitching to win in baseball, so they went out and they made sure they had plenty of starters. Not just because you need starters to win, but also because the Astros were on the outside looking in at the playoffs, and because they lost Framber Valdez, who was good for 200 innings minimally every season, they were looking to really shore up that starting pitching to make sure they get into the playoffs. So I like that they have this much starting pitching, but a lot of people are like, why are there this many starters? So obviously, when we're looking at the long relievers here, the two long relievers in the bullpen that we're going with is Serenity Now, Jason Alexander, George Costanza himself, who basically put the Astros on his back the second half of the season, along with Hunter Brown. I think, I'm not saying it was like a fluke season or anything. I think Jason Alexander has a lot of good stuff, but I do think that perhaps they're going to be game planning well against him. I think that I think that we'll have to see how he does and how that consistency will be as a major league starter. And because of that, and because of the overwhelming amount of starters with the Astros, I think he's going to start off in the bullpen. I mean, stretched out and kind of being ready for anybody who might have some kind of tough outing, and he's the first guy you tap to put in there, or he's a guy that you put in there if there's injury or underperformance in the six-man rotation. Behind Jason Alexander, we have Nate Pearson, who was, I believe, a Houston native starting pitcher who I think, sadly is the odd man out of this rotation that they were factoring in to be a starter at the beginning of the offseason during the winter a bit before we got Imai and some of our other pitchers here. So I think he might have an opportunity earlier in the season than anybody else. And then when we're looking at the 40-man roster, we're also looking at Ryan Weiss, who we got from the KBO. We have prospect Miguel Ulloa and AJ Blueball. AJ Blueball was really great last season and towards the end of the season, but he also is just odd man out, just not really having a space on this roster quite yet. So we also have Colton Gordon and Brandon Walter, who pitched a lot last season, who are probably going to be in Sugarland this season, as well as J.P. France, who the Astros designated for assignment, and he cleared waivers, and he's back on the team as a non-roster invitee. So that Sugarland Space Cowboys rotation is going to be looking pretty solid next season, and the Astros will have options for, I would say, major league ready arms, just ready to come up and compete if anybody gets injured. So let's quickly look at this bullpen, and then we're going to take probably another break before we get to the positional players, folks. So let's look at this bullpen. Obviously, the closer is going to be Josh Hader, no doubt. Eighth inning, that's Brian Abreu. And honestly, Abreu, I know people can be a little down on Abreu, but I think those two guys are pretty much interchangeable with how good Abreu has been pitching. I love that those two guys are out there. And then we get to, who's getting that seventh inning. That was a question all season last year. So I'm looking at, some of the same. We're looking at Brian King, lefty, who has had some good success with the team, and he's been a little inconsistent at times, but generally I like the stuff. I think he had a tough end of the season, but we like Brian King. There's also Steven Okert and Bennett Souza. So those are kind of the arms I'm looking at in the bullpen, because I put two long relievers on the roster. We don't have that many middle relief arms, but looking at the other options the team has that I'm projecting to maybe start off in Sugarland would be Jaden Murray. It would be the new pitcher we traded for from the Giants, Ting, who I think people are a little excited about in the organization at least, but because I believe he has minor league options, that's why he's on the team, to have somebody you can kind of send up and send down a little bit, to have roster flexibility. Then we also have Iniel de los Santos, who had some success last season, but just I feel like that these are names that could force the issue and get themselves on the roster, depending on how everybody performs in that middle relief cluster, if you will. And then there's Roddery Munoz, who I think also could be a candidate for starting off in Sugarland. And that's kind of the pitchers, if you will, that we're going into spring training with, and the cutoff lines and how I think they kind of stack up there. But we'll see. That is a lot of pitching. That's a lot of starting pitching, a lot of major league ready starting pitching. And I think this team is going to lean on them a lot this season. And, which is exciting, but it could also spell some bad news for our boy, Lance McCullers Jr. Like I was saying, we are rooting for him so much on this podcast, but there is so much pitching on this team that if he struggles, we might not see a lot of him. And that would probably, that spells the end for Lance McCullers Jr., I believe, for the Houston Astros. And that, I don't want that. So we're rooting for McCullers, hoping he does well. But if he doesn't, there is a lot of starting pitching on this roster. We'll see, folks. We're going to take a quick break once again, and we'll come back with some positional players, and we'll talk a little bit about your Rockets and Texans. We'll be right back.
H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
And we're back. Welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, folks. H-Town, we are talking about your Houston Astros, their spring training lineup, how I project them to stack up, what the depth chart is, if you will, just a little bit. I mean, after spring training, we'll definitely go through this again and, figure out who's making that opening day roster. But if I had to just pick, these would be my picks. So we just got through with the pitchers. Let's talk about your lineup and your position players. So 1 through 9, I'm just going to go through the lineup in the order that I guess if I was manager, Joe Espada, this is how I would line them up. So, Joe, if you're listening, buddy, just you can cheat off my test. Here you go. Here are the answers. Let me know how you think this lineup will be, but this is what I'm thinking. So obviously, your leadoff hitter, JP3. We're going with Jeremy Pena leading off the lineup, playing shortstop. No surprise either way. But maybe this one will be. I'm putting Issac Paredes batting second as a designated hitter. Now, Issac Paredes is super patient. He is the epitome. He is the prototype of the type of batter you want batting second. He's patient. He's going to take a pitcher deep into the count. He's going to foul off a lot of pitches, and he's going to wait for his pitch and make contact. He needs to be in this Astros lineup. This Astros lineup has been so aggressive. Last year was too aggressive, striking out too much, not taking a lot of walks, just sometimes making it way too easy on the opposing pitcher. We need a patient hitter in this lineup, and Issac Paredes is that patient hitter right now. I think he factors in perfectly in that second spot, and because of all of the infielders we have, I'm putting them at DH. We'll get to it, folks. Batting third, I'm actually, and look, it's so easy to just go with chalk and go easy and not stir it up a little bit. So I'm going to stir it up a little bit again and put Jose Altuve third. I'm putting Jose Altuve third, starting off back at second base. And I know a lot of people are saying, the left field experiment is over. Look, it was needed for the construction of the roster last season. Jose Altuve, someone is going to need to play left. We'll get to that. But I think right now he's going to be your opening day second baseman. He's going to take some reps in left field as well. But it may not be as many games as it was last season. And next season might be when he grabs that outfield glove and is kind of taking a more permanent spot out there as a left fielder and a DH. But we'll get to that. Starting at left field is a hitter I'm putting in fourth, Yordan Alvarez. And I know they said that Jordan doesn't want to play a lot of left, but with the lineup as is, with all these infielders, you're going to put Jordan in left. You're going to put Issac Paredes in the lineup at DH. I don't see how you don't do that. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe there's another trade going to happen, but I doubt it. Next, fifth, you're going to put Carlos Correa there at third base. Correa is an amazing hitter to have as your fifth option there. I really like that. And sixth, look, we're going to put Christian Walker in there. Walker needs a bounce back year, hoping that giving him a little confidence of not starting in the lineup too low. I like that, putting him there sixth, having him play first base. He's an amazing Gold Glove defensive first baseman. You need him out there for defense, just period. I don't think Paredes is, he's not going to be nearly as as good of a defensive first baseman. Apologies, he won't be as good a defensive first baseman as Christian Walker is what I'm trying to say. So you have Walker in there for the defense. You have him batting sixth to try to get some of that confidence and swagger back. Seventh, you have Yainer Diaz. Yainer, I really am hoping that this is a breakout season for him. But last season was a little rough at times. But I'm hoping he can start putting it together as he's learning how to become an everyday catcher, having a full season under his belt, a couple seasons under his belt. I'm hoping that it just all starts to gel now that he's been doing it a little bit. Batting eighth, I have Cam Smith in right field. That's right, the aircraft carrier. We love Cam here. I'm going him over Zach Cole because I like what Cam does out there in right. I like his defense. And I think he just got worn down at the end of last season. So I'm putting him in there. I'm thinking he has another excellent spring training that gets confidence back in him. And in center field, we have Jake the Rake Myers batting ninth. And I think there could be some kind of world in which you have Zach Cole or Cam Smith playing center field this season. But to start off the season, I see Jake Myers there. All right, so that's your lineup. And for our bench, looking at the bench real quick, we have 4 slots available based off of how many pitchers we took. So for the bench, I'm looking at mi primo, Cesar Salazar, as a backup catcher. I like him as a backup catcher. I liked what I've seen from him. I know that the Astros front office is nervous about him getting overextended in the majors, but we're rooting for him here. Then we also have utility man Nick Allen, who will be the infield utility man, taking over Mauricio Dubon's role a little bit, even though I say technically Mauricio Dubon's role is being played by Issac Paredes this season. Next, we have some outfielders. We're choosing Jesus Sanchez and Zach Cole. Sanchez is a major league player. Until they can trade him, he is on the team. But I do think there is some hope for this player. I love Sanchez. I love how happy he is when he plays baseball. We just need to see some better offensive results from him. And I think there's a world in which we could see that if he just starts clicking with this team. Hopefully he has the opportunity to at some point this season. And Zach Cole, obviously, at the end of last season, being a September call-up, really just electrifying the Astros when they needed some kind of pulse. I think Zach Cole makes the team. That leaves Zach DeCenzo, Bryce Matthews, and Shea Whitcomb starting the season in Sugarland. But DeCenzo, Matthews, and Whitcomb are all infielders. I think because we have so many infielders and Nick Allen as a utility man, I don't see a clear path for them making the opening day roster, unless they play so out of this world that they make a case for starting. There's going to be a lot of log jams this season, and I know people are worried about where is Issac Paredes going to play? How is this going to all work out? I think this lineup that I put out there is how they're going to figure it out. They're going to give some DH days, of course, to Jordan. They're going to give some DH days to Altuve here and there, but I think Paredes is going to DH primarily at the beginning of the season and spot start for players for Correa or Walker or Altuve, in the infield there. I don't think he's going to touch shortstop, of course, but I think he's going to play a good amount of the week as DH. But we'll see. Definitely let me know what you think. Who's on first this season really is going to be who's in left, because Jordan, like I mentioned, not supposed to play that much left this season because of injury and because of the team saying he probably won't. But if he doesn't, then who does? Zach Cole or Jesus Sanchez, and putting them in the lineup at the expense of Issac Paredes doesn't exactly make me feel too excited about that concept. DeZenzo or Bryce Matthews, I don't think are going to get much time in left. And Altuve, where, they've already said they're not going to do that too much, but I think out of all of those options, Altuve is kind of the one that will most likely be out there because Issac Paredes playing left. I know some people floated that out there. Could that potentially be a thing? I just don't see it. I think it was Josh Reddick, former Astro outfielder, saying that he just doesn't think that Issac Paredes has the range to play outfield. And honestly, frankly, I agree with him. But let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree with my lineup projections, my essentially kind of sneaky opening day roster projection here. Definitely let me know if you agree. But some real quick notes here, folks. Houston Rockets, since the last time we talked, beat a shorthanded Oklahoma City Thunder, but also without Amen Thompson. So calmate, everyone. People are like, don't be too excited. They didn't have Amen. So, they're playing shorthanded too. They won 112-106, and Alperen Şengün got a triple-double with 17 points, 11 assists, and 12 rebounds. Alperen Şengün has been a little inconsistent, so we're hoping for some more consistent play from him, and a triple-double is a good way to start it off. The team is now playing back-to-backs against the Clippers, and then pretty much like another week off. So hopefully the Rockets can steady the ship against the Clips, because this season is somewhat feeling like a spiral, even though the team is 32-19. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. It feels like there's, they just, even people are, even I believe it was Rafael Stone who was like, it seems like a tough year. People are feeling this year is tough, even though they're doing fairly good. I don't know. What do you project the future of this team is? I still think it's to get to the Western Conference. That's the goal still, even though reaching it might seem a little bit harder now without Steven Adams. Definitely let me know what you think there, folks. And also go and watch the KD, Kevin Durant, and Hakeem Olajuwon episode of Boardroom Talks. That's real fun, pretty insightful. If you definitely go check out those ballers, folks. And talking about the Texans real quick, the superb owl just happened. The worst Super Bowl for a guy named Drake since 2025, definitely. Bad Bunny carried the ball for more yards than the Patriots via Next Gen Stats. Just some quick Super Bowl notes. Obviously, love the halftime show here in this household. I know some of y'all didn't care for the lyrics, but I mean, most of y'all can't understand English lyrics either, so I don't know where this is coming from. All of a sudden, everybody cares about the written word. No, I was very excited to hear Spanish at the Super Bowl, folks. It was great. I loved it. I was dancing in my seat. It was a great party. It was so wholesome and lovely. And if you didn't like it, I just feel bad for you, son. It's not a flex. If you didn't like it, it's kind of a red flag for the rest of us. Usually I would tell you to calmate. But no one who was upset about this would understand what I said, so let me translate that for you. That's calm down, my clown. But, none of us wanted to watch the Pats win the Super Bowl, so it was definitely, while there was also a culture victory, it felt like a good victory all around with the Seahawks winning. But the Seahawks winning, kind of made some Texans fans feel like this could have been us. Kyle Shanahan, the coach of the San Francisco 49ers, mentioned that the Texans had a Super Bowl caliber defense, in a quote that also ended with, as long as the offense and special teams, took care of their business. And obviously that didn't happen, so that stung a little bit. Dalton Schultz also mentioned it was tough seeing the Seahawks in the Super Bowl with the comparisons to the Texans, but also tight end Dalton Schultz also took some of the heat off of C.J. Stroud, saying that, that game against the Patriots should have been focused on him more, and him being out for an injury was a bummer for him, and he wished he would have had his body right so that he wasn't injured in that game. So that was admirable from the tight end, trying to help CJ shoulder some of that blame. And I get it. CJ is going to take some hate for the turnovers, but hopefully Drake May will take some of the heat from it now that, he had a tough Super Bowl. Maybe that's a good thing for CJ and Houston fans. And before you call me a homer, I know the man had a lot of turnover issues, but he didn't really have the turnover issues until the playoffs. So I'm hoping that this means he just had the yips. He's going to have a bounce back year. I think he could turn it around after, having to switch coordinators, having to switch playbooks, having a whole new offensive line. The dude deserves some credit for battling this season and generally doing well until he got the yips there at the end. I think he can improve. I think might take a little bit of a sports psychologist to help get him there. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think CJ's bouncing back next year? I think he is. Let me know, Houston. Also, Norway is leading the medals race in the Olympics. Who knew? If you thought that and you're putting some money on it, congratulations to you. But we didn't expect it here at the podcast, folks. But we're going to wrap up this podcast so I can go watch some more curling and ice dancing. And with that being said, that's going to do it for this transmission, Space Cadets. Thanks so much for listening to this pod. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, share, bop it, kick it, skip it, smash all of those buttons for me, as the kids say. We're a small podcast and only go as far as our listenership takes us. We're supported by listeners like you, so please share us with a Houston fan or Australian in your life, and give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen. Reach out on social media at Space Cadet Sports, or call in at speakpipe.com/Space Cadet Sports to let us know what you think, folks. Or check out the Substack. That's spacecadetsports.substack.com. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the Texans next season if CJ's bouncing back. Let me know what you think about the Rockets and what their expectations should be for the end of the year. Let me know what you're projecting for those Astros. I want to know all your predictions, all your projections. Let me know on the Substack. Go check that out and subscribe. It's free to subscribe. There is a premium. I keep it as low as you possibly can on Substack. And I try not to put anything behind a paywall. It's just a way to support the podcast and help keep the lights on around here, if you'd be so kind. But check out the Substack. It's a lot of fun for Houston fans. And you could leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If you want to support us, but you don't want to subscribe to the Substack for whatever reason, I guess, merch is here. You can get an aircraft carrier hat, Don't Sleep on Houston shirt, or a Carla the dog hat in H-Town blue. You can find that on my website, paulsalazarjr.net, because I'm nothing but net. And if you made it this far, you must like me on some kind of level, and I guess I apologize for that, but you can find me on social media making jokes, memes, art, podcasts, and so much more. I mean, sometimes lazily on my own schedule, but I've been really busy lately. You can find me at paulsalazarjr. Once again, that website's paulsalazarjr.net, where you can find my other Substack and all my other nonsense, if you're nasty. Thanks for listening. Remember to be the best that you can be. Keep your head up, kid. And as always, vamos Houston, and abolish ICE.